Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Age Group Triathlon podcast. In this week's episode, I am joined by one of my clients, Zach. So I'm doing another interview episode this week. You may have noticed that in the last few months, I've done an awful lot of solo episodes and not so much in the way of interviews. And the reason for that is that I was struggling to think of good people to invite onto the podcast who I thought would actually really be able to offer some useful insights. I find that some podcasts fall into a bit of a trap of interviewing people with very sort of tenuous links to the sport or current affairs, things that are happening. I thought, if I'm going to do interviews, I want to make sure they're really impactful and they're really interesting to the audience, rather than just getting someone on for the sake of it. Now, I'm going to let him tell his own story, but to give you a little bit of background, Zach has recently set a massive personal best at the Outlaw Half triathlon relative to his time last year. And I think it's a really interesting interview that he gives, where he gives us some insight into not only sort of how it is that he achieved that personal best with me, but I also think it's a really good insight into how coaching can be beneficial for everyone, regardless of sort of their age or their ability. And it's not something simply reserved for the very fastest or the most elite of athletes. So, without any further ado, let's get stuck in. Hello, Zach, and welcome to the Age Group Triathlon podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, no, I really, can't complain. The sun's out here, nice for a dog walk. It's that point where, it's not too hot to take your dog out. It's just pleasant.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about dog walks. We're here to talk about the Outlaw Half, which you completed a few days ago. But before we get into that, can you just give listeners a little bit of an introduction about yourself, who you are, and kind of a brief chat through of kind of your history in triathlon?
Yeah, so I'm Zach. I'm 31, be 32 in a few months, um, based around the Oxford area. And this was my third triathlon and my fifth sporting event, so to call it. So back in 2016, I did my first half marathon. Um, and I absolutely hated it, and I swore I'd never do it again. Um, and then a couple of years ago, sorry, last year, I did another half marathon, so clearly a sucker for punishment. My first triathlon was 3 years ago. I did the Dorney Olympic distance triathlon, and I absolutely loved it. It was a fantastic event, a fantastic intro into triathlon, a great day out. Uh, my wife and our friends came, and they all had a great day, just sat in the sun watching me pelt around on the bike and run about. I think the Dorney setup is really nice for those shorter distances because there's
Yeah.
really good access for spectators.
Hmm.
Um, so that was really good. Last year, I did my first middle distance, the Outlaw again in Nottingham. And during that, I had an absolutely terrible time, and I swore I'd never do it again. And here I am this year, just completing it again. But absolutely loved it this year, so much better.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear. So just a question actually for you. You said that, when you did that first half marathon, that you hated it. What was it that was different about the first triathlon in your mind? What was the difference between the two that made you feel like, oh, that was, I couldn't think of a worse way to spend a Sunday when you did the half marathon, as opposed to absolutely loving that first Olympic distance?
Um, so with the first half marathon, uh, it was like I say the first sporting event, and I
Mm.
kind of just thought to myself, I'll do a half marathon. That sounds like fun. And I had a couple of friends from work that were interested in doing it. And I didn't have any real structured training. I would essentially just go out and try and run further than I did last time, essentially, and
Yep.
progressively got the distance. And that was fine. I felt relatively fit. But on the day, it was the Oxford half. It was quite
Hmm.
a good team warm up, and that was quite enjoyable. But as I was just felt like slogging round the course,
Mm.
um, at not the pace I thought I was going to be doing. It got quite lonely. There was not that many people as the spread of the field spread out, and I was sort of in the middle. Um, and I was just getting progressively more tired and doubting myself. And yeah, when it came to the last section is all through the city, so it's quite twisty and turny. It's quite a nice run, really. But when you're tired and you're twisted and turning, and it's the last kilometre, and you're twisted around, going around the corner, and I was just with every corner, I was hoping, please let there be a finish line now. No, more running. Let's go around here. Please let there be a finish line now because I was just so tired.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that really got me down. So
Mhm.
less enjoyable for that one. But with Dorney, the first triathlon, I think it was just a great day. So we got there
Mm.
early, and my wife and my friend, we sat up in the little cafe with a balcony overlooking the lake.
Yep.
And you saw the earlier waves go in, saw people come through transition, and everyone just enjoyed themselves. There was just pure positivity.
Hmm.
Um, there was someone who on the swim, I think it was warm enough. They said no wetsuits, so there were a couple of people brave enough to go no wetsuits. And one of them got in a little bit of trouble. I think it was a bit colder than they expected, but he had a bit of help on the canoe, got his breath, and off he went. It
Mm.
was and even that. It was just seemed like quite a nice sort of all encouraging.
Yes. Yeah. I think that triathlon, ironically, can be a lot more inclusive than running. Running can feel a bit elitist. It can feel a bit more cutthroat. I think a lot of runners take themselves very seriously. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of triathletes who take themselves very seriously. But I think they are a lower percentage than those who sort of, especially like a marathon start line. You know, a lot of people their entire personality revolves around this marathon that they're doing, and it has done for the last 4 months. Um, and that because of the variety of triathlon and just sort of the vibes, it's always felt to me at least like a slightly warmer, more welcoming atmosphere. It's a bit more akin to a park run than a marathon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've met all the people I've met through triathlon. It's always been pleasant and encouraging. Whereas I think cycling groups have got quite a reputation for being very elitist. I think that's something cycling groups in general can't shake.
Yeah, I mean, with the cycling groups, I understand it a bit more than the running groups, because if you are not up to scratch as a cyclist, you can be a liability to the group around you, and pose a risk to other riders. But yeah, it's no excuse for the way that some of them behave. But yeah, generally speaking, the sort of triathlon groups are they don't take themselves quite as seriously, sort of in general. But again, there are always exceptions. So I wanted to just sort of rewind a little bit. If you can, you told us that you had a bit of a nightmare doing your first middle distance. If you can just talk us through that race and what in your mind sort of went wrong on that day.
Yeah, it was very much my mindset. I think is what let me down. First of all, the hardware issues that I had. I came out the swim and transitioned my watch into T1 and got down to where my bike was set up, pulled my wetsuit off, sat down, and transitioned into the bike. And I was like, what have I done? I can't go back. So I just
Mm.
stopped my watch, carried on going. Then, as I was pulling my shoes on, I transitioned into T2. And in my head, I was like, the whole thing is over. My watch isn't working properly. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I had a wobbly over that. So that was a nightmare. And then I had a pair of sunglasses that I wanted to wear whilst I was on the bike, and a pair of sunglasses that I wanted to wear whilst I was running. And I left both of them in my bag and set off without them. And it was a really sunny day.
Right.
Going out, being blinded instantly. Oh, I've got two pairs of sunglasses, and I've left them both behind.
Mm.
So that really set me back. But
Yeah.
I think fundamentally, I wanted to attack that triathlon. It was a real like a mission. I'm gonna do well. I've done lots of training. I am gonna smash this. So my swim was all out as fast as I could, and I came sailing out. And I rushed through that transition, which is why I left all my bits behind. And then
Yeah.
I hammered through the bike as fast as I could. And
Mm.
then by the time I was coming to the last transition, I was cooked. I was
Hmm.
absolutely cooked. And even so, it was a quick transition. And the setup with the outlaw run is there's a small hill and grass section that you sort of come round before starting your laps of the lake. And I came running out so fast of my transition.
Yeah.
Probably sub my 5 minute per kilometer. I was pacing out of there up this hill,
Yeah.
and pretty much instantly, both my quads just locked up with cramp,
Hmm.
and that brought me to a shuffle. And I kind of tried to shake it off, and then tried to carry on going. And
Yeah.
I had to have a real word with myself. I was like, do I sack this off now because I'm in a lot of pain, or do I need to make the decision now because I know it's going to hurt for the rest of it. And I decided I'll just be in pain for the rest of it. So I shuffled on round
Mm.
uh, the run, and
Yeah.
it was three loops. So I
Yeah.
knew where a family of friends were spectating. So I'd do a little jog and force a smile and wave as I went past those. And then as you get round the back where there's no people, I'd fall into a walk and think,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? And that it was during that I thought I am never doing this again. I was like,
Hmm.
this is too far to be enjoyable. This is the most miserable I've ever been. All these months of just crumbling into nothing.
Yeah.
Um, and and also, as I was in all this pain, I was like, when all else fails and I'm cramping up, what do we do? I'll take on gels. That'll make me feel better. So on top of all the cramp and the upset, had a stomach pains and I felt sick. So that was my 2024 experience.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I
yeah.
guess the immediate question is, at what point did you think I'm going to have another crack at it in 2025?
Um, well, so I did it with four friends in
Hmm.
2024, and then my brother-in-law deferred that year. He was supposed to do it, so he was going to do it this year as well. And I had a few months off training after that. There was a bit of a didn't know what to do with myself, but I wasn't really enjoying it. Um, but because my brother-in-law was doing it, and my other friends said they were going to do it again, I thought, you know what? I don't want to say I've done a middle distance. Oh, how did you get on? It was terrible. That feels like quitting. That feels like being defeated. I don't want to be defeated by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I signed up again, and as it happened, my brother-in-law didn't sort out his deferral, so he didn't do it anyway. So
Oh,
he's sort of the one that spurred me on to do it, and he didn't get his admin sorted in time, so he came and watched, and I think he was quite jealous on the day this year.
well, maybe you'll be back in 2026. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah. So I mean, that sounds, yeah, but actually, before we go, if you can just chat us through how the 2025 race went and what was different about it and how your fortune sort of changed within 12 months.
Um, I think I gained a lot of racing knowledge that first year in 2024. I did reflect on it a lot whilst I was training, and I knew what to expect a lot more, which always helps. But I did have a completely different mindset. I felt really in control of everything.
Hmm.
Um, I had a lot of confidence with it. As I was traveling up this year, I did get a bit nervous in the car. I was thinking, I've done a lot of training again, and if this all
Mm.
goes horribly wrong again, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Yeah.
But as I got there, and it is a lovely weekend to be fair, yeah, I just kind of settled my nerves, and I knew, like I said to you a few times, I've never felt fitter,
Mm.
and I can't explain how. I just felt a lot more in control, and I felt more comfortable that I knew I would be able to do it, and I knew it wouldn't be the same as it would last year because I wasn't going to let it essentially.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I did jot down the time differences between last year and this year.
Hmm.
So my swim last year was 39 minutes, and I did a 37-minute 30 this year. So an improvement I didn't think I would do because I
Mm.
don't feel like I'm a very good swimmer. But I was really pleased with that.
But especially given the
Um,
fact that you went so hard on the swim in the first year, in a kind of like all out effort, the fact that you managed to obviously use less effort but went faster, I mean, that's the holy grail of swimming, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I was shocked when I came out because it wasn't that I felt like I could have done more. I just knew I had a lot more in the tank, and it was a steady. This is going to be a long day, so let's just get through it. So that was fantastic. The first year I did a 3 hour 5 minute ride, which was an all out best effort, and this year was a 2 hour 54. And I remember constantly on the ride, I was thinking, take it off, take it down a gear, spin your legs. Let's just
Yep.
long day. Let's just get through it. So again, with that, I was really, really pleased to come out with that. Um, and then a 2 hour 25 minute run last year, and this year was a 2 hour 6. So
Yeah.
everything was an improvement. Absolutely everything.
That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
That's the dream, isn't it? And especially when somebody it's only somebody's second race at the distance, you'd hope that, you would broadly see improvements across the board, but those are significant improvements in every discipline. So what was the time difference? Did you look at the total time difference? I imagine you did.
Yeah, I was 25 minutes faster this year,
That's a
which
lot.
is incredible.
I mean, if you, it's the idea of time in triathlon, it is difficult to get your head around sometimes, but something that I will sort of say to people is, okay, imagine if you had got onto that finishing carpet and the referee pulled you aside and says you've got a 25-minute penalty and you've got to stand there for 25 minutes and watch all these other people stream in front of you. That would be the longest 25 minutes of your life. That would be crushing.
Yeah, yeah,
So that
absolutely.
it's an enormous amount of time. It's an enormous chunk of change, to be able to take off of your time. And not only that, but to feel better during and after the event than you did last year. I mean, that is, that's massive. So what is it that in your mind made the difference?
Um, I think the type of training that we did versus what I did last year, 100%. Um, Zone two is wonderful. So zone two really is wonderful because at the very start of our training, when I
Mm,
was doing the shorter distance zone two things, I was thinking, come on, this needs to pick up. This isn't very much. But as I was getting closer to the event and we were doing longer distances at zone two, I was checking my watch. I was thinking, last year when I was in absolute misery and I was walking,
mm,
doing zone two now is so fast compared to taking a walk. If you compare walking along with cramping your legs to
yeah,
running at zone two,
yeah,
you're so much faster. And I was thinking, this is so easy doing zone two. So I think that's what helped on the day. The prep of remember, zone two is 6 minutes per kilometer, 6 minutes 30 per kilometer, and
mm,
that is easy. We're proving that now. So
yeah,
even if you're struggling on the day, take it at 6 minutes 30, and it will be easy, and you'll just get through it.
yeah. And when I mean
And
my kind of
I did.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
My sort of my goal and the way that I set up the training for you realistically was that I didn't want you to have the same experience that you did last year. Yeah, that was the most important thing for me because I want you to be able to stay in the sport, but also it doesn't really matter how um how fast somebody is running as long as they're running for this second event. If they've walked most of their first event, we want to make sure they run the second event. And then hopefully, if they decide they want to do a third one and really take off another bunch of time from it, then they'll be even faster. But looking at your run data now, you actually spent most of your time in zone three.
that's excellent. Yeah, I only walked through the feed stations,
Mm,
which is was a massive win.
yeah,
Because I did feel like that final lap on the day, I was feeling pretty cooked. But I was able to just keep myself going, take it through the feed station, take on a
yeah.
bit of food, a bit of water, and then start up afterwards and not feel like my life's going to end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's great.
it's yeah, I mean for some 70.3 athletes, um, their race pace will be zone two. For others, it might be low zone three. For some, like some of those who are at the very top who are looking to go under 5 hours, it might be sort of mid to high zone three. But the difference with those athletes is if you are finishing a race in that 4.5 hour mark, you can just go harder over a shorter time period than you can over a longer time period. So somebody who is expecting to finish a race in about 7 hours is going to be competing at a very different intensity to somebody who is looking to complete it in 4 hours. So the exact sort of target that we hit doesn't matter a huge amount, but the reason we do so much sort of zone two in training is because it allows us to be aerobically fit enough to be able to handle that zone three on the race day. And that can be hard for people to wrap their head around. So they think, well, if I want to race in zone three, then I need to train in zone three. And yes, you do need to do some work in zone three, but that's the ability of just like creating that enormous aerobic engine that just allows you to keep going, 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 like a diesel engine that just refuses to give up. That's really is the key, especially for long distance triathlon, to just give yourself the capacity to be able to, again, like have a solid swim, a solid bike, and still have a really good time on the run.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was definitely enjoyable, I think, is the other side of it.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I did really enjoy just getting out, and because you're not absolutely killing yourself every training session, go out and enjoy the view, go out and enjoy the scenery, go take friends out, go for a chat and
yep,
like, you know what I mean?
yep.
It makes the whole thing more achievable.
I was on a run this morning myself, running along the Thames Path near me. I'm quite close to the source. And I was out on my run and I stopped and I saw some hares in a field just sort of running around playing. I just stopped and just enjoyed watching them. And it's the kind of thing that, if I was there, with headphones blaring music, really focused on running fast, it was a moment I would have completely missed. But be able to stop there for 30 seconds and just enjoy watching, a bit of nature. It's a completely different mindset to your training, and it's a lot more sustainable. It allows people to stay in the sport longer, and at the end of the day, it does also lead to improved performance. But I'm really glad you shared that because there are probably going to be a lot of people listening to this who go, "Well, I've heard about Zone 2, but I can't get it to work for me. I don't understand how it could work. I need to run faster. I need to do more intervals." Um, I mean, for you, when you finished the middle distance last year, what is it that you felt was lacking from your preparation as well as your execution on race day? And how did that differ to the kind of sessions that I had you doing?
Um, so last year, so I won in a competition a 6 week training program last year through Outlaw.
I remember now,
And
yeah.
that was my first ever structured training. And so before that, with the shorter distances, I just essentially done if I can just run, swim, and ride once a week, every
Mm,
week, then I'll probably cover all bases. But once you have structured training, I almost lost my imagination with how to structure it myself. But I think with the
mm,
longer distances, you do need some form of structure. But when I say that the first year was an all-out attack on the triathlon, I think all my training was an all-out attack as well. It was super
mm,
high intensity, and I loved it. I did love the high intensity. I loved. I might not have loved it whilst I was doing it, but coming
mm.
out of a training session, going like, "God, I killed that today. I am
Yeah,
exhausted. That was brilliant. That's going to make a difference. That was good."
yeah,
But I think doing so much at that high intensity just set me up for getting into an event at high intensity, which for a long distance, it's as they say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And whilst this is a half marathon, it's it's the same mentality, same thing, isn't it? It's
yeah.
about getting through everything, not just getting through one thing.
And I'm sure, I mean, I know that I had this during my first half when I had a similar experience to you. But you're sat there, you're walking the run. And you're thinking to yourself, all of those hard run interval sessions now feel pointless. All of that time that I spent developing that speed, running at sub 4 minutes per kilometer, it's all for nothing because I'm here walking at sort of 8.5, 9 minutes per kilometer. And yeah, what feels good in the moment and what gives you that serotonin isn't always what's going to help you on the day.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do shift work. I do 12-hour shifts, so
Mm.
I might enjoy getting absolutely knackered, but you can't do it long term, really. You're just too tired to do anything else.
Yep. No, absolutely. And it's as what the more aerobically fit you are, and with zone two improving your aerobic fitness, the more aerobically fit you are, the better your body can absorb that higher intensity, even the quicker it will recover. And we had a brief chat before we started recording. And you're saying how much better you feel in the days after the event to last year. And a large part of that will just be that your body is just so much better conditioned at accepting that volume. Now, what is it that you felt on reflection? I know you've talked about sort of the longer zone two sessions. Were there any other training sessions that we did that you felt were really crucial and that you felt made the biggest difference?
For me, I know you spoke on your podcast before about how you don't like the brick sessions. I Where I am in my sort of sporting event,
Mm.
I like the brick sessions because I like a bit of a heads up as to what my legs are going to do. I think I do suffer with cramp in my legs. I think a lifetime of never training legs is catching up with me trying to do these sort of things. So remembering what or reminding my legs what they should be doing. So
Mm.
the sessions really, I think they're important for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that
Um,
I don't like brick sessions. I'd say that I find they can be overrated people who do really long bricks every weekend. But yes, especially for somebody who's a bit newer in their triathlon journey, yeah, I totally see that.
yeah, and definitely getting out in the open water before the event really, really, really important. Um, a race simulation again, something that is brand new to me, but
Mm.
that opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I think that was my first open water swim of the season. And I said to you, I need to do some more open
Mm.
water swimming because it was a shock, and it is different to swimming in the pool. Um, yeah, they're the sessions I find enjoyable. Things that
Mm.
challenge me are enjoyable, but things that are directly relate to race day,
Yeah.
yeah, super
Yeah,
important.
and that's the kind of stuff that again we did much more in the last couple of months as we're approaching. You do that real race specific stuff. So if you can chat us through that race simulation, I know you mentioned the swim was a real wake up call, but talk through how it went and what lessons you were able to take away from it.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. So I was feeling really good before the race simulation, feeling really fit. And the first thing I did wrong is I didn't warm up. I think the excitement of doing my first open water swim and the excitement of seeing where I think I'm going to stack up for the first time
Mm.
ever, I literally turned up at the open water swimming venue, threw my wetsuit on, and jumped in the water, set off. And I was thinking, God, why do I feel so tired?
Hmm.
What's going on here? And I was like, oh, well, I haven't warmed up. That's
Hmm.
exactly what's going on here. So I didn't warm up. So that was a bit of a conscious thing for race day. I had to make sure, take time, get a
Mm.
warm up. So transferring that into my race this year, everyone else puts their wetsuit on in the transition area. I carried mine down,
Hmm.
stayed in my tri-suit, carried it down, and did a little warm up before I threw a wetsuit on, about 5 minutes before I got in the water. So
Mm.
that was really important.
What did that warm
And
up consist of on race day?
uh, so by getting my legs moving, like dynamically swinging legs around, and then stretching off, stretching quads, calves, shoulders, getting everything warmed up, and then
Hmm.
with the wetsuit on, a bit more of the same, getting limbed up. Nothing too. strenuous or serious, just getting
Mm.
blood flowing around because it
Yep.
is a cold morning. So making sure you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I jumped in the water, I did feel ready. And then on the race simulation, I got out the water and my wife was there holding my bike ready for me to set off. And she looked at me and went, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I think so." She's like, "Are you in shock?" I was like, "That's cold. No, I'm fine," because the water was far colder than I expected it to be. And I was a bit in shock, shock that I didn't warm up and shock at how tired I felt, shocked how cold everything
Mm.
was.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I did the transition in the back of the car,
Hmm.
jumped on my bike, and I was in one of the highest gears I've got, so I had to, well, without falling over, stumble off the bike again and try and get my gears sorted out so that I
Yeah.
could move off properly. And I got about 5 minutes down the road, and my socks were soaking wet, and the feet were cold, and I was cold, and I wasn't very happy anyway. So that again, lessons learned: take more time in transition, get
Yes.
yourself properly
Yeah.
dry. And I packed two pairs of socks because if I make that same mistake, I've got dry socks for the run.
There we go.
So that was a good direct race simulation to race day prep that I did.
Mm.
And then I didn't plan my route very well for the race simulation. I had a huge hill
Yeah.
quite
I
early
remember.
doors, which is a real struggle. Uh, but doing the distance, getting comfortable on the bike that you can do the distance after the swim, um, I did it. I might not have been all that happy and more angry at myself for choosing a bad route.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I got it, and then I got onto the run, um, and a little bit of cramp, but nothing like I've had previously. And I did the 10K. It was quite, or almost quite nice. Um, Not the same elation as race day, but
Mm.
definitely the ability to know that you haven't ruined all your training. This we've still got time. There's still things you can take away from this. It's not
Mm.
game over because things haven't gone well. Um, yeah, I think nutrition as well. That's what the race simulation taught me. My nutrition wasn't good enough. What I had planned, not up to par. So the time to change it up and get more things in me bag.
So what is it that you took with you on the race simulation, and why didn't you feel that worked for you?
Um, so I had some like hydration and fuel in my bottle and gels,
Hmm.
and I'm not very good at taking in food um, during or after um, exercise. So when I did my half marathon last year, I had like protein bars and flapjacks and stuff like that, but I just couldn't eat them. I
Hmm.
couldn't breathe whilst I was eating. So
Mm.
I always thought that solid food was a big no-go. So I just relied on the gels and the drinks.
Hmm.
And I spoke with the training group, and someone suggested a different brand of a in bottled drink, which
Hmm.
was really good. Tastes nice, had more carbs in there. I think the downside with that sort of thing is relying on fluid for nutrition leads to an inevitable stop in a toilet on race
Yep.
day. So,
Hmm.
but I think for me, it was a trade off that I was willing to take.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing I added was fruit bread and chocolate spread.
Nice.
Yeah,
Put
I
together,
think
I
the
assume.
yeah
Oh,
together
together.
as a
Okay.
little sandwich. Yeah, so the fruit in the bread, which made it quite moist and quite easy to get down, and just the extra calories that's in chocolate spread was enough to boost me up, I think.
So was this like normal bread but with raisins in, or was this like malt loaf?
Not malt loaf, no. So
Okay.
normal bread with
Yeah.
fruit.
Okay. That's a
Yeah.
bit less weird than I had like a saurine chocolate spread sandwich in my mind there.
No, that would be quite that would be hard to get down.
That's good. And how did you find that nutrition worked for you on the day?
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
brilliant.
absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Um, obviously I didn't have the chance to try it for the race simulation because I didn't realize that I needed it. But
Mm,
on some of the brick sessions, I was trying it in there and trying
yeah.
different things. And it seemed to be going in quite well, and it went down great on race day. I was able to I took my time in the transitions, and I was got the fuel in, made sure I was ready. That made the difference, and yeah, just felt more comfortable all round.
That's great. And it's interesting that there's a common theme that's sort of occurring here, which is don't rush transition.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which I think is, I mean, I tend to come out relatively highly, especially over longer distances. I tend to place quite high in the transition, much higher than I do during the actual in any of the actual sports actually. But I guess like I've been doing it long enough, and I must have done hundreds of transitions between sports over the years. And I know that I can nail it down and exactly how to do this, get this, and get it all changed in that quickly as possible. And I also know I always go into transition knowing what it is that I'm going to do. Although there was one race I did forget to put my race belt on, actually. That was a bit embarrassing. Um, it's like so I got back to transition. There's a Brit and I put it on for the run. And there's a BTF technical official. He goes, "It's a bit late for that, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sorry, mate."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's the time that extra 2, 3 minutes in transition. You can easily save or make more than that back by being prepared on the
yeah,
ride or the run.
yeah.
My first triathlon, the friend I was doing it with was so quick in triathlon, he started the run with his helmet on.
Mm.
So had to got sent back to drop it off. So that was the time he saved by being in a rush. He lost by having to run back to his bike to take his helmet off. So
Yeah,
it's
these mistakes do cost you. I mean, even in the professional ranks, when they have like a box they have to put their wetsuit and their goggles into. And sometimes you'll see like a close up of a wetsuit and it's hanging out of the box and it's just touching the floor. They've got a 2-minute penalty for that. Um, and it's harsh, it's cutthroat, but it kind of like rules are rules at the end of the day. Whereas for amateur athletes, it's much more a case of kind of a false economy, of kind of having that like all out race speed, go as fast as you can in your mind. So yeah, I do think like if somebody is starting out in triathlon, it is worth slowing down a bit and taking their time to make sure they get the transitions right. And then when you are routinely hitting those transitions, then you can focus a bit more on being a bit more efficient, getting faster with those transitions. Once you've already got the basics down and you know that you're not going to head out of transition without your sunglasses, for example. And what you can just about suffer through and bear for a 20 kilometer bike, maybe a 40 kilometer bike, like over 90 or 180k if you head out without socks or sun cream or your sort of some sunglasses, like you are going to have a miserable time out there.
yeah, yeah. When I say I took my time, I think I had a 9 minute transition one and a 6 minute transition two, so they weren't an age.
Hmm.
It was, I just took my time. I wasn't rushed. So it might feel like you're dawdling through, but it's not that long
Hmm.
over a 6 hour day.
Yes, that's kind of that's the way to see it. And I kind of when you were explaining how, you really attacked the swim and went out hard on the bike the first time that you did it. Something I try to get people to think about when they look at a 70.3, because a lot of the time in sprint or Olympic, you can afford to make some mistakes with your pacing and broadly get away with it. You might have a slow time, but it wouldn't be as bad. But over the 70.3, if I mean, most people there for their first 70.3 would come in somewhere around the 5 or 6 hour mark. So I'll say to them, look, instead of thinking to yourself, is this my 1900-meter pace? Is this my 90 kilometer pace during the first two disciplines? Think instead to yourself, is this my 6 hour pace? Could I keep this level of exertion going for 6 hours? Because that's a very different sort of way to look at things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the build up to the race, obviously, as you've already touched on, you do 12-hour shifts. How did you manage that heavy shift work with training for middle distance events? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be thinking, I do that, whether it is somebody working in the emergency services, um, in hospitals, something like that, where there are these, you might only do sort of might only work 3 days during the week, but those are 12-hour shifts, sometimes night shifts back to back. How did you manage that work schedule with the demands of training for a half Ironman?
It's it is a struggle. It is about finding a balance. There's no doubt about it. I've got a very understanding wife, which is I'm very, very grateful for. And I think this time round was the first time I've had to change my mentality because I used to do all my training before work. I love doing early morning training,
Hmm.
um, but I just can't get myself out of bed at 3:30 in the morning anymore. It's just
Blame you.
not actually. Yeah, I did a few of them. If you're going out for a 45-minute session or half hour, I could just about justify it. But um, listening to your body
Mm.
fundamentally, making sure that you are fueled, you are being sensible with it, planning your whole week rather than just planning day to day. Um, yeah, a bit of a juggling act, but it's tough, but definitely achievable. Yeah, there were some sessions, some days where I'd come home from work and my wife would go, "Oh, do you want some food before you set out?" And I'd go, "You know what? I'm not going out. I just can't do it."
Mm.
And I would be disappointed with it, but I knew it wasn't the end of the world. And there are some days where my wife would go, "No, come on. It's only 45 minutes. I think you can do it, can't you?" I'm like, "Oh, you know what? I can. Thank you. Yes, I'll get up and go." So, but I think if you get challenged on it, like it's 45 minutes, I'm sure you can do it.
Mm.
You think to yourself, can I really do it? Am I really tired? And
Yeah, yeah.
knowing knowing the days where I am too tired, I really just could do with the time on the sofa,
Mm.
the time chilling. Um, yeah, definitely important.
And was there a correlation between those days where you felt you just couldn't do any training and you genuinely couldn't do any training and your work patterns, for instance? Because when you put your availability into Training Peaks that I built all the training around, I saw that you would have sometimes you'd have just sort of like 2 days off, then one shift, then 2 days off, and then like five night shifts in a row, or so 4 or 5 night shifts in a row. Did you notice a pattern of the kind of sort of the shift work that you'd be doing ahead of these days where you felt that you just had absolutely nothing, or was there no correlation there?
Uh, no direct correlation with the shifts I was working.
Mm,
It just depended how busy I was whilst I was in work.
okay.
If I've had a day where I'm on my feet all day doing 20,000 steps, I don't want
Yeah.
to come home and go for an hour long run or go for an hour on the turbo train. I just think, you know what, it's give your legs a rest.
Hmm. Do you mind sharing the industry that you work in just to give some people a bit of context?
I'm an engineer.
Hmm.
Yeah, so working in a factory, I've started a team leader position. So there's some dynamic meetings, a lot of responding to
Yeah.
breakdowns, etc.
Yeah. And that
Yeah,
is when you are spending that much time on your feet, especially over long shifts, that takes a lot more out of your body than you might expect it to. It's like if you go and spend the day in London, you can come back and you'd be sitting on the train or the bus or in the car and just think like I feel like I've done a hard training session sometimes just because of the amount of time that you spent on your feet. And then to get back from that sort of 20,000 step day and think, okay, like I've got to head out and I've got to do sort of an hour run now. Like that I imagine that can be quite a daunting prospect mentally as much as physically.
yeah, and it is the balance because if I'm not training, I get miserable. I get twitchy and antsy, and I can get a bit grumpy. So
Mm.
sometimes, if I've had a difficult day, going out for an hour is exactly what I need. I'll come back feeling
Yeah.
fantastic. I feel like I could do it all ready for the next day because I've had that
Mm.
time for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the first time I started a new job in August last year, where it's a bit of a team leader position. So it's the first time
Mm.
where I've got to be a bit more switched on with like understanding people and dealing with people, not just dealing with my job. So
Mm.
getting that time to blow out the cobwebs and have some time for yourself can be exactly what you need.
And it's the kind of thing that if when you have people reporting to you as a team leader, if you go into work in a bad mood, there's a good chance that you're going to inadvertently sort of take out on them. And that's the kind of thing that can really kind of, give people the hump and sort of can sort of damage that sense of sort of trust and approachability and the like. And that, yeah, having the ability to process all of that so you can turn up at work the next day and feel a bit more kind of focused and in a better headspace. I think it's really valuable. It reminds me of another one of my clients who works in finance, where they do some long old hours over there. And he's saying one of the biggest reasons that he does triathlon, he works with me, is because triathlon is what allows him to actually do his job well.
Yeah, I totally can understand that. Yeah, yeah. I think you've got to be self-aware. I think like that's fundamentally part of it, is it knowing your body, but also knowing when you're tired and knowing when
Yeah.
you need to take a breath,
And
know
what
when you're going to have a yeah.
what were the warning signs for you when you realized that you were getting to that point where you were starting to run out of road? And you're thinking, if I go out, it was going to be a mistake for me to go out and train today. What were the signs that told you that you learned to look out for?
I think training dread is
Hmm.
how I can put it, because I love working out in any form. I'll give anything a go. And if I'm halfway through my day or three quarters through my day and I'm thinking, oh God, I can't believe I've got to go out tonight.
Mm.
Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Then some of it could just be need to shake it off. But if I get home and I'm like, no, I really can't believe I've got to do this. I don't know how I'm going to get up for work tomorrow if I've got to do this tonight.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's when you lose enjoyment. I guess it's that was a warning. If I don't think I'm going to enjoy it, and not because it's going to be tough, just because of the repercussions it will have day
Hmm.
to day or the next day. Yeah, that was the warning sign for me.
Yeah, I think that's very wise. I think that, I like the idea that triathlon it should enrich somebody's life. They should feel better for the training and for the events that they're doing and still get a real kick out of it, rather than feel that it's dictating their life or it feels like a second job. And having
Definitely.
that autonomy to go, look, I know that this is just going to be a mistake for me to head out and do this session right now, and that I need to step away. I think that's really good for somebody's sort of longevity in sport. I think that those people who refuse to listen to the warning signs from their body and just plow on through, and they think, oh yes, I know I'm tired, but I've got to keep going. Those are the kind of people that completely burn out in 4 to 6 weeks' time and either end up having an incredibly disappointing race or not even making the start line.
And I think it's having confidence in the training. I the confidence that missing a session here and there isn't going
Mm.
to be the reason that it all falls apart on race
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Because I've had times where I've had a big ride booked in the schedule, but we've had a
Mm.
family event,
Yeah.
and it's I can't cancel a family event because sorry, I've got to go on the bike for 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what? I'll miss it or I'll move it around.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the reason it all comes apart.
No, that's absolutely right. Nobody's able to write a training plan where, executing every single workout on exactly the day that's given is going to be the difference between failure and success. And I think people who like numbers and who like rules and like certainty, they kind of think that that's the way that it works. but it's really not. And you can afford to miss a few longer sessions without it having a real material effect on your result. Because the training sessions are built up in a slow, progressive fashion. And that, yes, there's going to be times that you miss that. And speaking of sort of disruptions to your training, in your build up to this very successful build up to having this great race, what did you have in the way of setbacks, in the way of illness, any niggles, any kind of sort of major family sort of commitments, what disruptions appeared in your training? How do you manage those?
Um, well, so I broke my toe 6 weeks ago. It was what I felt like a crushing blow to.
Ouch.
Yeah, I was and the other disruption of I moved house 2 weeks ago, so I was
Glutton for punishment.
prepping for the house move,
Mm.
moving some stuff around in the garage, and very clumsily kicked a bucket, literally not metaphorically, and broke my toe. Um, and straight to Dr. Google, how long does a broken toe take to heal? It's like, oh, broken toes take 8 weeks to heal. I was like, oh, well, we're 6 weeks till race day, so that's not going to work for me. So uh, I took a week off.
Yeah,
Fundamentally, there's nothing I could do. There's no, so I took a week off, and then
yeah.
I took a break from running, probably for the next week. So I had 2 weeks of not running,
Hmm.
a week and nothing, and then just judged it on the day. Started taking it slowly,
Mm.
reduced some of my running sessions just so they weren't too far.
Very
So I
wise,
could
yes.
gauge if it was going to be a bigger issue than just a delay to the training.
Mm. And how did you feel that disruption with the toe actually impacted your result on the day? Obviously, it can feel like an enormous setback at the time. Think I've lost a week of training, and having to reduce all my run mileage. Like, how much, I know this may be a really difficult question to answer, but how much time do you think that actually realistically cost you on the run?
Okay, riding the high of a successful triathlon, I could say it don't think it affected me at all.
Mm,
Um, but it's okay with all triathlons. I think the runs are always the hardest bit, aren't they? As their last. Um, but the run felt great. I did 2 laps and I felt fantastic. It was the
mm,
third lap where I ran out of steam, and running out of steam, I don't think had anything to do with the broken toe. Really,
yeah, no,
you know,
that's not. If you ended up with pain in that area, then yes, it could be that you just managed to upset it enough to trigger it on the last lap. But it's really difficult to pace a 70.3 because you do want to start to feel like the wheels are starting to come off a bit on the third lap. Because I mean, as much as you don't want somebody to really struggle, I don't want somebody to come down the finish chute and thinking, oh, like I think I left like 10 minutes on the road out there. Like I didn't push enough. So, it maybe you didn't want to start to feel like that as soon as you did on that third lap. Maybe it would have been nice if it was only in the last 2 or 3 kilometers. But the fact that you did start to start to feel it all add up on that last lap, but I don't think that's unusual. I don't think it's necessarily a sign that, you did anything particularly wrong. It's just a sign that you're maybe just a tad ambitious with the pacing, but we're about in the right ballpark.
yeah, absolutely. So I did, I think it was a 28-minute 5K for the first 5K, and then I was
Mm.
58 minutes at 10K. And on
Yeah.
my second lap, I'm not sure. I think it's roughly 7K per lap if it's 3 laps. But on my second lap, I was thinking I can do sub 2 hours here.
Mm.
I felt so confident, and I felt like I had a lot in the tank. I was like, I can do this. I can put in a really strong time here.
Mm.
And it wasn't that I pushed on and ran out of steam. As I kept on going, I was thinking maybe I was ambitious. I don't have as much in the tank as I thought I'd do, and
Hmm.
I just plodded on. And it was, yeah, essentially the last third of a lap where I was like, no, I'm not quite survival mode, but the pace had dropped, and I was like, let's just get to the end here. Let's not break any
Right.
world records. Let's just get through
Yeah.
it. So
So it was
yeah,
right at the
I
end that that
can't.
happened then.
yeah, can't complain from that sense at all.
Excellent. That sounds like you did a really good job of, like you say, like listening to your body and working out how much it had to give. And yes, obviously it is painful to see this little target that you set in your mind on the day of, oh, maybe I can go sub 2 hour. It is painful to feel that slip away, but it's much better to accept that and go a little bit over than to try and really push and end up again with like another cramp. Um, or something else that could add a lot more time onto your finish, sort of your final finishing time. So I think that's definitely right, made the right decision there. And now you followed sort of the plan of mine where I think I wrote you 2 blocks of training, one of 3 months, one of 4 months, if memory serves, or maybe the other way around.
Uh, yeah,
So, obviously you didn't have sort of as much feedback as I might do sort of with other clients, but what did you feel you sort of could or should have done differently with regards to the training plan that I set you? What do you think could be improved? Or equally, what do you think you could have improved with your own approach to the plan? What would you do differently next time?
I think what I realized towards the end of the training was how I wasn't doing the training at the start properly. So when we were doing zone two at the start,
Mm,
I and they were the shorter distances. I don't think I took those serious enough, and I was just going for probably a zone 3 or 4 run. I was going out for an enjoyable 5K rather
mm.
than putting in the slow, dedicated building sessions
Yeah.
because it is a big case of trust the process.
Hmm. Yeah.
It really is. I remember at the start thinking, I can do more than this. I can get I can do more. I want it to be more.
Mm,
And then when you get near the event, you're thinking, God, this is quite tiring. All this, and thinking, I'm glad I wasn't doing all this a few months ago. Um, so understanding for me, understanding the training program better, I should have taken them, not taken them more seriously, but followed them closer in
hmm.
some respects. Um, yeah, and I think that was my biggest downfall, really. Um, I do like data. I do love data and numbers, and I think a more feedback with you, I probably enjoy more.
Hmm.
But that's just because I like digging into stats and all the rest of it, and I mean, graphs and stats and numbers. I think that makes it feel more tangible, doesn't it?
It does. It gives a sort of a slight sense of sort of certainty and sort of reassurance that oh yes, I'm nailing those, I'm hitting those. And if you had gone for the plan above where we had that monthly feedback session, and we looked through the data, and if I then looked at the first month of training that you did, and I said, oh, like these zone two runs, they're looking a little bit punchy. Do you think that's the kind of like, do you think at the time that you would have taken that on board as being like, yes, he's right, I should follow the plan? Or do you think there would have been like a bit of a rebellious part of you that was thinking, yeah, but I can go faster? Like, where were you at the start of that, at that
Um,
time in the plan?
well, I think it would have just been a better understanding for me. I think we would have had
Mm.
the conversation of the understanding of it. Um, Possibly I would have still rebelled a little bit and gone out even faster. But I do like sticking to. I think I like a plan. I do like a
Yeah.
plan. If I can stick to the plan, I feel like I'll be safe and happy. So yeah, I probably would have reined it back and enjoyed. It is not time off, is it? But it's if you're not going as hard, it can feel like it's time off.
Yeah. And by the time and sort of with regards to sort of the pacing of the plan, because you have a lot of people who start training with me and they go exactly what you're going through and they go, but this is really easy. I can do so much more. And it's kind of like, yes, I know you can do more. That's the point because we're making sure that you can handle the really hard training that's coming at the end. Do you think the pacing of it was about right, where by the time that you got to those last final like 3 or 4 weeks of hard training, that you really did think like, crikey, like I'm glad the taper's coming up because this is really starting to add up now.
Yeah, it's about building. Well, I'm sure you know about building that foundation, isn't it?
Mm, yeah.
You it got to the last few weeks on the build up, and even at work, I was thinking, is this worth the risk? No, I'll get some help with carrying this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, yeah,
do I want to the risk for reward of going
yeah,
too hard? Just build a foundation, build the box, because you don't need to be doing great distance at the start because you're probably at more risk of hurting yourself. Or if you're out for longer when you don't have a stronger foundation, then you're not quite doing things properly, doing things right.
yeah.
And you don't want all your time, all the time, to be training. You do need time for everything else.
Yes, there is, training should be a supplement to your life rather than being something that completely, dictates everything that you're doing. Speaking of foundations, how did you feel sort of the strength work went?
Uh, so in previous uh, training that I've done, I've spoken about doing strength work, and
Mm,
they went, "Yeah, you can go to the gym whenever you want and just add it in." And I was thinking, my last training was super high intensity. I was like, "I'm doing all this intensity. You want me to go to the gym as well?"
yeah.
Um, but the strength work, I think for me, I probably needed more of it. I didn't realize. I think,
Okay.
like I said, never really training legs. I think I've got fundamentally weak legs, which I do need to work on and
Mm,
strengthen out. Um, but it's enjoyable. It's something different, isn't it? You know, it's all targeted to what you're doing.
hmm.
You know, it's applicable, and it is a challenge. I've not done that sort of work before, and to do something that is seemingly so simple, yet causing you so much sweat, so much effort,
Mm.
super enjoyable. And
Which exercises?
yeah,
Sorry, continue.
well, I was gonna say I'd say it worked. Arguably,
Yeah.
it worked. I did so much better this time. Um, it certainly worked.
Which exercises are the ones that made you feel like this is so much harder than it should be? Like this is really challenging me a lot more than I thought it would. Are there any that stick out in your mind going, oh, I did used to dread that exercise, but like I really liked how I progressed with it and I can really see how it has helped me.
Anything with balance. So the single leg RDLs and the
Yeah.
um, renegade rows and that sort of
Mm.
stuff. Lunges, barbell lunges,
Yeah.
where they're like the low weight but high reps. Um,
Hmm.
I'd be started off thinking it's easy, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure if I can make this. So yeah, that sort of thing is super enjoyable, super hard. Um, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. So doing
Yeah.
things like that, I didn't realize I needed it.
And I think that will have made a real difference to the running because when you think about running as a motion, it's a series of single leg jumps or hops, right? And without that balance, without that stability in our lower limbs, that is going to have a marked effect on our sort of our running sort of efficiency, really, our ability to apply force to the ground and to be able to push off the ground efficiently, um, is going to be vastly improved by doing these RDLs. Because they're just going to give us a much better sense of stability, especially in those muscles, the hamstrings and the glutes, which are drivers within the run gait.
Yeah, yeah, and I just strengthen up the knees, I guess, isn't it? It's all that lower portion.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, all felt great.
that sounds. So, I think, is there anything else at this point that you sort of that you'd like to touch on? Anything else that you'd like to add?
Um, I don't think the only thing I'd really like to say is a bit of a shout out to Outlaw in general. I think when we
Mm,
talk about triathlon, rightly so, Ironman has a huge chunk of the market. People
mm.
refer to triathlons as Ironmans.
Yes, that's a
Um, but
bugbear of mine.
but the Outlaw event itself was fantastic. And people say they're the same whenever they do them. Obviously, I've done the same one twice, and I haven't done an Ironman, admittedly. But
Mm.
it was such a nice weekend,
Hmm.
so enjoyable. They to get everyone involved. They do like a kids run, like a junior outlaw, future outlaw on the Saturday. They do a
Mm.
sprint on the Saturday as well. and people said, well, we went camping, went there for the whole weekend, went and
Yeah.
spectated, friends, children went and participated. It was just a great event.
Oh, excellent. I have heard it's got much, it's much less corporate than Iron Man. I mean, any company the size that Iron Man is going to have that. It is going to lose that sense of sort of familiarity and sort of that friendly aspect, which I understand that, Outlaw has done a really good job of capturing. And I have to say, I haven't done an Outlaw event myself. There, aren't too many that are too close to me. And I probably should have a go at Bowood. Um, I think it'd be good to go down and have a crack at that. Try that course there. But no, I've had nothing but good things about them as an event organizer. So I'm pleased to hear sort of that you reinforce that, and hopefully there'll be people listening to this in the UK, because I believe they only run events in the UK, who are thinking, oh well, I was thinking of doing an Ironman, but maybe I'll do an outlaw event instead.
Oh, well, yeah, anyone thinking that, I would highly recommend them. Yeah, I think Ironman is very much targeted at for the athlete, isn't it? It's a hardcore, the athlete's quite strict, intense um, event from what I've heard. From what I understand, Outlaw kind of lent the other way and go, let's do a friendly all-rounder event. I think my wife was saying that one of the early athletes on our event came straight out the swim onto the bike and got a puncture straight away. And there were marshals and spectators all helping her out, get a wheel off and helping her change the tube. So quite a friendly and helpful lot.
Excellent. Sorry about the background noise. My greyhound has decided it's time to wake up from her nap.
Excellent.
Hello. My greyhound does like to spend a lot of time napping. Um,
Yeah.
so no, that's really, really good to hear. Now, I know when we had our last call, you were mooting the idea of moving on from this half and to do a full this year. Is that something that you're still planning to do?
Well, it's funny that you say that. I made that comment on the back of I thought that this year would be my last year doing triathlon.
Hmm.
Um, but I actually enjoyed doing triathlon or enjoyed this event so much. I don't think it is the last year that I'll be doing it. I actually enjoyed the event so much. I kind of thought I don't want to jump into a full
Hmm.
because I don't think I will enjoy it yet.
Hmm.
So I do want to do a full,
Yeah.
but I think I might do another couple of halves beforehand and build up to it just so I can enjoy the day.
Yeah, and you know what? I support that fully. Whilst I wouldn't say, it's too soon for you to jump up to a full, it is, I think that there's no harm in taking your time with the journey and going, you know what, I'd actually really like to get my head around this middle distance first before I move up to this full distance. I think some people do rush into the Ironman a bit quickly. I think they go, oh, Iron Man is what's inspired them. If they saw, if they spectated a race or they saw Kona on TV, something that inspires them about that distance, and they think, oh, that's what I need to do. And they go out and they spend so much time preparing for this event that they end up not sort of resenting the process, but it takes over so much of their life because they're going from nothing all the way up to an Ironman for the first triathlon. They come away from it and they think it just feels unsustainable. How could anybody do that for more than a year or two? But by spending that time, getting to know the other distances, working on sort of that general athleticism, more rather than just putting in the long hours that you need to for Ironman. I think I would definitely sort of support that. But you're thinking of another half later this year, maybe one of the other outlaw events?
I was actually thinking of doing a we were chatting with the three friends that I did it with this year. We said we
Mm.
might do another Olympics, do a shorter distance, do something a
Yeah,
bit more
yeah,
palatable, and then do another half, and then maybe a full next year.
yeah. That works.
But looking at the results, there was a in the female 69 to 74 category, one finisher, 7 hours, 7 minutes. So you could do triathlon forever. Clearly, if you've got the good foundations for it, you get the training right, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a faster time.
No, there are
There's no
lots of
restriction, is there?
yeah, there are lots of people who who do triathlon well into their sort of 60s, 70s. I've coached somebody in their 70s. Um, different genders, different backgrounds, different levels of mobility, all sorts of people can find, they can get an awful lot of value from the sport. Now, the run is the one discipline where some people can find themselves sort of unable to compete as they wish. But I know a lot of people, they'll either do an aqua bike event, which is the swim followed by the bike, or they will just sort of walk, semi-jog their way around the run. And for them, they get enough satisfaction from that to keep coming back year after year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a great sport for longevity, that sort of total body training. I don't think there's anything that could be better for your overall athleticism than swimming, cycling, running, and strength in the gym. Uh, I think it is, yeah, it's a fantastic way to keep fit and healthy. And if you were thinking to yourself, if you do go, okay, 2026 is the year that I do want to double down and I do want to do a full distance, would your instinct be, you know what, I'm going to go and do the full outlaw based on your experience?
Um, I hate to say it, but I think I'd do an Ironman just so I could say to everyone I've done an Ironman. But yeah,
Yeah,
they,
have
they
you
really
got
have
your
got
eye
that
on one?
market. Well, they've started doing. Is it Leeds is the full, isn't it? That's
Hmm.
July time.
Yes, yep.
That's probably too early in the year. I think I'd probably do Tembe, as my friend reliably told me, the ninth hardest Ironman in the world. I'll
Only
give that one a
ninth.
go. Apparently,
I
so
thought it was hot. I thought it was in the sort of the top three or four. I mean, I suppose it depends on what you term to be a hot race. Is a hot race one that's incredibly humid? Is it one that's incredibly hilly? Is it one that has a challenging sea swim? There's an awful lot that can go into what makes a race tough. Maybe they calculate it by DNF rates, the amount of people who drop out, as giving themselves a general idea. But yeah, I mean, Tembe is widely seen as being, one of the toughest in the world. And I one of my very sort of like I think episode 3 of this podcast, episode 4, interview one of my athletes who did it last year. And he struggled to motivate himself to do the training for Ironman for some time. So he signed up to Tembe to scare himself. Did a pretty good job.
yeah, I'd say yeah, yeah. So we'll see. Maybe Tembe next year.
Yeah. Well, there's no need to make a decision this far out. Play it by ear, see how the rest of the year's training goes and the different races, and it could be that you do more halves next year. Play the field a bit and look at the Ironman in 2027. Again, it's not like the distance is going anywhere.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for me, it's just as long as I'm getting the enjoyment out of it, that
Yes.
really is all that matters.
Yeah. As long as as long as you still find that motivation, as long as you've still got that why, I
Yeah,
think that yeah, that's the most important thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So, just wanted to touch on, before we go, obviously, I think I had a look and, between sort of the 7 months of coaching that we did together at £60 a month. Now, obviously, that's not pocket change. That is still an investment. That is still a decision that someone has to make and think, right, okay, is this something that I really want to do? Is Simon the right person that I want to work with? All of that. But when you look at it, well, the sport of triathlon, it's not a cheap sport.
No,
Especially once you start looking at the sort of the middle and the longer distances where aerodynamics become more important. I mean, the amount that you paid me for the coaching wouldn't even have got you a top end wetsuit. Sort of where, where in your mind sort of does that investment sit relative to your total triathlon budget, and what would you recommend to other people who are thinking to themselves, "Oh, can I really justify this investment for something that I don't get to sort of that's something that's not tangible, something I can't keep forever, like a pair of wheels, for instance?"
well, so for people that know me will know that I'm incredibly tight and I don't like spending money, but I don't think I'd do a triathlon. Or I think I definitely wouldn't do a triathlon without a training plan.
Hmm.
I think it's super important. Everyone everyone likes buying bike bits because it's the only thing you can really buy to think you're going to improve. But really, as long as you're comfortable on the bike, in whatever way that might be,
Hmm.
um, if you're comfortable, that's all that matters. You got to be you've got to be good. So I changed from my normal road bike to a TT style bike fundamentally because I wasn't comfortable on my road bike,
Hmm.
and I spent £500 for uh, an old Planet X,
Yep.
and the previous owner had done a few upgrades for me, but it it was more about being comfortable on it.
Yep.
I thought it was so cheap for what it was, and I thought I'd just give it a go. Rolled the dice, went and tried it, and even on the test ride, I could tell I was comfortable. But when it comes to spending money, I think you can have all the kit in the world, but it doesn't really matter, does it? If you're not fit enough to get there, if you are disciplined to do your own training, and you're a very good cyclist, then maybe you could get the benefit out of new cycling equipment. But you see all sorts going around, don't you? On the sprint on the Saturday this year, there was someone going round on a traditional upright uh, bike, just pottering about. You can
Yep.
do it on anything.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Excellent. Well, unless there's anything else that you'd like to add there,
Nothing extra for me.
there we go. Well, I'm going to thank you very much for your time, for coming on and sharing your experiences, and hopefully a few people who are in your position, maybe even there might be some athletes who are listening to this based on the title of the episode after having a bit of a rubbish weekend themselves, might hopefully think to themselves, hang on, you know what? There is hope for me. Maybe I can turn this around and have a better race next year, and that don't need to hang the wetsuit up just yet.
Oh, hopefully, hopefully. Well, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Zach, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you once again to Zach for coming on. I think it's a really powerful reminder that even if you have an absolute sort of shocker of a race by your own standards, even if you fall short of your expectations, not to just give up and to walk away, to come back to try and work out what it is that went wrong, and if you can afford to seek out someone who can give you some outside advice on turning it around rather than simply banging your head against the wall, making the same mistakes over and over. If you're interested in potentially working with me, if you want to set up a completely free, no obligation call, then drop me an email. My email address is down in the show notes. Otherwise, I'm going to wish you all the very best for the week of training ahead, and I'll see you all next week.